The doctor looked at her and said something she would never forget. "If you don't stop," he told her, "your nose is going to fall off your face." Stevie Nicks sat in that office in 1986 and finally understood that what had started as cocaine in a recording studio, just something to get through one more night, one more album, one more impossible tour, had turned into something that was literally eating her alive. She had spent over $1 million on the drug. She had worn a gold and turquoise diamond-encrusted bottle of it around her neck so she would never be without it. And now a doctor was telling her the drugs had burned a hole straight through her nose. But here's the thing no one tells you about Stevie Nicks. The cocaine wasn't even the worst part. I'm Marlo, and this is She Burned Bright. We tell the real stories of the women who shaped rock history, the ones that never made it into the press releases. If you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell. I promise you it's worth it. By the time that doctor gave her that warning, Stevie Nicks was one of the most successful rock artists on the planet. She had co-written the songs that drove Fleetwood Mac's Rumours to 31 weeks at #1, an album that became the emotional diary of an entire generation. She had launched a solo career with Belladonna in 1981, which debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. She was the woman in the white flowing dress, the voice that could break you open on Landslide, the mystical force behind Gold Dust Woman and The Chain. She was, in so many ways, the soul of Fleetwood Mac. But no one becomes the soul of anything without something to burn. The story begins in 1974 in a recording studio in Los Angeles. She and Lindsey Buckingham had been together for years, young sweethearts turned musical partners, their voices woven so tight you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Their debut album, Buckingham Nicks, had flopped. They were broke and close to giving up. And then Mick Fleetwood walked into that studio and heard something that changed everything. When he offered Lindsey a spot in Fleetwood Mac, Lindsey's answer was simple and absolute. "If you want me, you have to take my girlfriend. We're a duo." So Stevie Nicks walked into one of the most famous bands in the world, not entirely on her own terms. For the first year, she never forgot it. Still, her talent was impossible to ignore. And by 1977, when Rumours came out, she was writing some of the most emotionally raw music anyone had ever heard from a rock band, because the pain was real. She and Lindsey had broken up. John and Christine McVie were divorcing. Mick Fleetwood's marriage was collapsing. 5 people in various states of emotional devastation, locked in a studio together, sharing, in the words of the album's engineer, a communal bag of cocaine. Stevie described it simply. She started using just to get through the recording. She stayed using for the next decade. What the public saw was the shawls and the spinning and the mystical beauty on stage. What was happening off stage was something different. Cocaine every day, weeks without sleep, Crevassier and beer alongside it. That diamond bottle around her neck so she was never without the drug. And at the center of all of it was the wreckage of her relationship with Lindsey, a man who, on the 1980 Tusk tour, reportedly mocked her on stage, kicked her, and threw a guitar in her direction. A man she said she never fully stopped loving, even as loving him was destroying her. There were other loves. A brief, consuming affair with Mick Fleetwood in 1978, her bandmate, a married man with 2 children. She ended it herself, said later that it would have been the end of Fleetwood Mac if it had continued. She carried that weight quietly. Around the same time, a relationship with Don Henley, a pregnancy she lost. She wrote the song Sarah in the aftermath, a song with layers she never fully explained, but that she has described in ways that suggest it carries the memory of what wasn't. She always buried what hurt most inside the music, and then she buried herself a little deeper in whatever was at hand. By 1985, she had made a decision. She checked into the Betty Ford Center and came out clean from cocaine. And then her psychiatrist put her on Klonopin, a tranquilizer designed to keep her stable. What it actually did was take 8 years of her life. The dosage kept going up. She gained weight. She couldn't write. She had no memory of entire tours. She described the experience of eventually detoxing from it, 45 days in a hospital, as feeling like someone had opened a door and pushed her directly into hell. She said it plainly in interviews afterward. Klonopin was more dangerous than the cocaine had ever been. The cocaine had damaged her body. The Klonopin had taken herself. But Stevie Nicks came back. She always came back. In 1998, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Fleetwood Mac. In 2019, she was inducted again as a solo artist, the first woman in history to receive the honor twice. She stood at that podium and said it plainly. 22 men had done it before her, not one woman, until her. She said she hoped it meant she had broken a glass ceiling. She broke more than one. What I want you to understand is what it took. Not just the talent, though the talent was extraordinary. It was the cost. A decade of cocaine, 8 years swallowed by a prescription, a love affair with Lindsey Buckingham that twisted from devotion into something that left marks she carried for the rest of her life. Through all of it, she kept showing up. She held Fleetwood Mac together through the kind of chaos that destroys bands, because she understood what they had built together and refused to let it go, even when letting go would have been the easier choice. She wrote her heartbreak into music that 50 years later still sounds like someone telling your own story back to you. That's not just survival. That's something rarer. That's burning bright even when everything inside you is going dark. If this story stayed with you, there's another woman on this channel who refused to let the world win. Her story is next. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the moment. Thank you for being here. I'm Marlo, and this is She Burned Bright.